Hey you guys, welcome back to my channel. I'm so excited today because today I'm going to be doing my first story time. So I'm really excited. If you follow me on Instagram, I am Miss Ziegler, that's my personal. Embellished by Rachel is my beauty page. So if you follow me on Instagram, Miss Ziegler at MSZEIGLER, I do polls and things like that. So I did an option of what I would have my first story time be about, and most popular vote was me being terminated from an airline company. So I'm gonna sit here and briefly tell you guys the story. I'm gonna keep it simple, keep it short, and just kind of get through it for you guys today, okay? So when I moved back to California from North Carolina, which was October 2016, I was like applying for jobs. I was applying for jobs when I was in North Carolina, and I kind of prayed to God. I'm like, God, if you get me this airport job, this airline job, I'll move back to California, kind of thing. And lo and behold, I ended up getting a callback interview for the airline. Cool. So then I had an interview back in my hometown where I lived, where my family lived, where I'd be moving to. I ended up getting an interview and I got the job. So I started the job November 14th, 2016. I was there, I had training for a whole week in Seattle, which was great, awesome. You know, I met all the qualifications. I was a great candidate for the job. I was excited about it. So I started the job officially. I had training and everything. So I came back probably like, I think it was honestly the day after Thanksgiving, I had my first shift. Okay, so everything's great. I start, awesome. So with this job, you had a probation period. So you had 1,040 hours of probation time that you had to get off before you can become a full-time employee. So I started off as a part-time employee, and I was working maybe 20 hours a week. So it was gonna take a very long time. I mean, even if you worked full-time and you worked 40 hours a week, it would still take about 6 months for you to get off of probation. So I wasn't really rushing it. You know, I would pick up shifts once I was able to get, you know, off of the first initial probation. You could pick up shifts and things like that. So I worked like crazy hours. I probably worked like 4 a.m. to 9 a.m. I had a lot of 4 a.m. to 9 a.m. shifts. I had a lot of mandatory overtime, which happens when you work for an airline. You know, you get that when, especially if you're at the bottom of seniority. It was a lot. Like, it was a lot. So I stayed in it. I was in it to win it. Never called out of work. I never missed a day of work. I was late one time, and I was late because I lost my ID badge, because working at the airport is the most like, it is the most like daunting experience ever. Like, you would have to literally like probably leave an hour before your shift begin to get to work on time, because you have to park your car, you have to take a shuttle, you have to wait on the shuttle, you have to walk, get into the airport, do everything, put everything down, clock in. So you had 2 clock in badges. You had to have one to scan, open the door, and one to clock in. So I didn't have the one to scan in the door. So all I could do was clock in, but I'm like, I knock on the door, they're like, where's your badge? I'm like, I lost it on the way over here. They're like, oh, you're late. You have to go find it. So I'm like, okay, that was my first late. So I worked there from November 14th all the way to June, I think it was June 9th was my last day. So I was there for a good amount of time. Like, I was there, I was great with the customers. I have excellent customer service, great communication skills, never had any complaints with the customers, nothing like that. So it was really actually like a shocker, you know, for me to get terminated, because I'm like, you guys are like obviously haters. But anyway, it's okay. So that incident, you know, I only had one occurrence, and that's usually why people get let go, because they have too many occurrences, because it's so many things that can go wrong with you working at the airport. I mean, you forget your badge, you can't clock in, you know, the shuttle's running late. There's so many things that can like make you lose your job. So I beat all the odds. I'm like, I think I was maybe like 200 hours away from being off of probation, okay? 200 hours away. I was almost there, had one occurrence, one occurrence. Cool, great, we're all good. So in this process, they trained us. So first we started off at the ticket counter. So you start off at the ticket counter, and then you go up to the gates, where you're like changing people's seats, you're organizing things, planning, making sure everything's good. You board the planes, right? Then you go to board the planes, and then you learn jet bridge training, right? So that's like driving the little jet bridge up to the plane, moving it back, all of that. So I was the last person in my class to get trained in the rest of my training because I worked mornings. I had a really odd shift. So 4 to 9 is really, really busy. So it was hard to train me during those times. So they kept me at the ticket counter for an extensive amount of time. So I had to really kind of fight for me to move on and learn other things. So I think by March, they kind of started training me finally. I was getting the training on everything that I needed. So at that point, I was still learning about jet bridges. I would have people come with me when I would move a jet bridge because I would get nervous, and they always told us like you could hit a plane and you could cause damage, and just to be really, really careful about it. So I was always very cautious about it. It's something that was always in the top of my mind, but it was just such an uncomfortable situation, just the whole experience. Like everybody was so like uptight about it. It just wasn't a positive environment for me personally. It gave me a lot of anxiety because you just never know. You just never knew. Like you would come into work and work 4 to 9, and they would leave like letters on the time clock, and they'll be like, they called it juniored, right? Because you're at the bottom of the seniority list. So you get juniored, and they'll say, you have mandatory overtime and you have to come back from 12 to 4, right? So you just woke up, worked your 4 to 9, you get 3 hours off, and then you have to come back in. So it was just so much anxiety for me. It made me so anxious, and it was just so ridiculous. It was just the craziest experience. So I was the last person to get trained in my class. I was the last person to learn everything. I had to really advocate for me to even learn everything because they were just content with having me at the ticket counter. So I had to, really make sure that I was getting the training that I needed. So within this time, from November 14th to June 9th, it was 7 months. I went to Texas, Atlanta, Miami, Hawaii, Mexico, and I went to LA back and forth several times. I did all this while working for the airline. So I definitely got my flight benefit privilege in, so I'm thankful for that. I'm grateful for that. My mom says that's probably why they didn't keep me, because they was hating on me. But anyway, so this goes back. So let me tell you this incident of me hitting a cart with the jet bridge. So this is probably like end of May. And so I had like my second review, and in this second review, they were really like, the review made me cry because I'm like, this is so not true. Like it was just the most outlandish things that they were like dinging me on, and they're saying that like, it was like outlandish, and I'm like, this isn't going good. Like at this point, I'm like, they clearly are not gonna keep me because I really didn't get along. I'm not that I didn't get along with everybody, but like on my work breaks, I wouldn't go into the break room. I'm not one of those people. I don't like small talk. I'm very deep. I'm very genuine. I don't like to just talk and shoot the breeze. And that was a part of a lot of jobs. So I think that's why it's best that I work for myself, because I am who I am, and I don't like to shoot the breeze and shoot the shit with people. That's just not who I am. So in that environment, that was a lot of what was going on, and I don't like that. So when I would have my break, I wouldn't go in the break room. I would just, go to Starbucks or do whatever. So I think that they dinged me for that because it seemed like I wasn't into the culture of the company. So that was the first thing. So by this time, I'm still learning the jet bridge. It's May, so I think they trained me like a few times March, a few times April. So May, I was like on my own to move the jet bridge. So I go to work, Rachel, you're gonna meet this plane at this time. Okay, great. I had some incidents where the schedule had changed, things have changed, and I was late getting to a plane previously before this. So I get to the plane on time. I'm just telling you all the instances because I want to be fair. I don't want to be biased. So this is just a whole new thing. Like you would have a written schedule. They would write these schedules in the morning, and you have to go back and change and make sure nothing changed. So they'll change planes. Something comes in later, something, you have to be very aware. I wasn't aware enough, so I had missed the plane before. But once I missed the plane, I'm like, okay, don't do that again. Make sure I know what time. Make sure I ask people, did you check a new schedule? So I was very conscious of this because I knew that was something that I had done. So this day I go, I met a plane, cool, the plane came, landed, everything's fine. So I was moving the jet bridge because we had to move it back into place. So I'm moving the jet bridge and I'm just going about it, doing my, doing my normal, my due diligence, making sure nothing was in the way, or so I thought. So I do it, okay, I'm in the jet bridge, and I was at like a far gate. And at this gate, you didn't have really good service on your walkie-talkie. So I didn't really it was like kind of in and out, but I heard someone say, stop at gate 28. So I'm like, oh, I'm at gate 28. So I stopped and I looked and I don't see nothing. I don't hear anything. I don't see anybody. So then I keep on going, I'm like, okay, I don't know. So then another employee comes up and she's like, oh, I got it. Like, you could stop. I'm like, are you sure? I'm like, cause I'm not done yet. Like, I'm almost done. Like, I just got to move it right back in place. Like, she's like, no, you're fine. You're fine. Like, don't worry about it. I'm like, okay. So I get out, get from under the jet bridge, and I'm walking back into the break room or wherever I was going to go I had to put something back. So I'm walking back, and one of the leads, she goes over the walkie-talkie and she's like, Rachel, can you meet me at jet bridge 28? I'm like, sure. Okay. Turn back around. I'm under the jet bridge and I'm waiting for the lead. I'm like, okay, under here. So it's probably like maybe like close to 5 minutes goes by, and still there's no lead. So I'm just like, okay. So I turn around. So she gets on the walkie-talkie and she says, is there a reason why you're leaving where I told you to meet me? First of all, her attitude was it was literally like the tone was just out of control. I'm like, yeah, because you're not there. And she's like, can you head back over there? I'm like, sure. Head back over there. She comes down. So she was watching me the whole time. She's looking at me walk back. She sees me under the jet bridge, but you don't come down and meet me under the jet bridge like you said. You said meet you under the jet bridge. So I'm under the jet bridge. She's not there. So I go back and she's like, so were you gonna tell anybody that you hit a cart? I'm like, I hit a cart? She was like, yeah. That's why we told you to stop. I'm like, I didn't know. I didn't know I hit a cart. She was like, so you're telling me that you didn't see the cart? I'm like, yeah, I didn't see the cart. If I would say hit a cart, if I saw a cart, I wouldn't have, I wouldn't have hit it, obviously. So this is my take on it. So we're talking and she has this tone with me, so you didn't see the cart. You mean to tell me you didn't see the cart? I'm like, no, why would I hit a cart? Why would I keep going if I hit a cart? Anyone could have been down there. The workers like to sit on there. You could have took somebody out. You could have injured somebody. And I'm just like, well, it was an accident. I literally did not know. I legit didn't know, right? So she's just looking at me so did you look in the camera? I'm like, yeah, I did look in the camera and I didn't see no cart there. Obviously, why would I, come on. So after that, I was literally on thin ice because they were just not fooling with me. They were not fooling with me. Keep in mind, previously, a girl who's worked there, she was a friend of mine. She worked with the company over a year, okay? And she hit a plane with the jet bridge and took a whole plane out of commission. How do I know? Because that was my flight from Orange County to San Jose. And I'm like, dang, the flight was canceled because the plane was out of commission. So there's room for people to make mistakes, right? Who's been there over a year, but because of me, who still just grasped this concept of moving jet bridges, I get, you know what I mean? I'm it's the end of the world for me. So I was just okay. So after maybe it was a couple weeks later, I had my third review with the manager, and he had the lead in there. And he was like, so there was an incident about you hitting a jet bridge. And I'm like, about you hitting a cart. I'm like, yeah. And so she's sitting there and I'm like, yeah, that was an accident. It was an accident. I didn't take a plane out. I didn't kill anybody. I didn't hit a plane. So she chimes in yeah, you just had no empathy about it. And I'm like, what? Empathy for a mistake? What do you want? I didn't hurt anybody. I didn't ruin a plane. All I did was hit a cart and the cart was fine. It's not like you guys had to throw the cart away. So they're just so she's going back and forth with me. And I told her in the meeting in front of the manager, I'm like, your tone is completely out of control. You know what I mean? That's not how you talk to people. That's not good leadership. So me and her are kind of going back and forth, and the manager's just letting it happen. Like, he's just sitting there like, well, what do you have to say about it? I'm like, I have to say that it was a mistake and it was an accident, and I'm learning, and you know, maybe I guess I could use another week of training. Like, so I guess my attitude was just very nonchalant about it. I don't know if they wanted me to cry or they wanted me to, I'm still not sure. So after that review, he basically told me like I was like gonna fail probation. So this is like the end of May, right? So I'm like, oh my God, at this point I had a trip to Mexico already planned, a group trip. And I'm like, dang, I'm gonna have to buy so they ended up sparing me, right? They ended up keeping me through June. I think June 2nd, I had like this flexible schedule, and I was off for like 9 days. It was like the longest time, but it was all legal. I didn't request any days off. This was just how my schedule worked. Like, I bid, and I had some people like cover my shift, which was totally legal. Everything was totally legal. So I was gone. I left maybe like June 2nd, and I came back the 9th. And so I come back to work, right? I get back from Mexico. I'm able to fly to Mexico for free. Awesome. I think I flew to Mexico for like $100, honestly. Round trip, all I had to do was pay for international taxes. So thank you for letting that happen. So I come back from Mexico, and I was supposed to get paid. So of course I needed my check. I'm like, I need my coin. So I looked, and my direct deposit didn't go in my account. So I called one of my coworkers. I'm like, hey girl, did your direct deposit go in? She was like, yeah. So I called. So I'm like, okay, that's sus. Like, something's up, right? Like, something's up. Keep in mind, I hadn't been to work for 9 days. So I'm like, okay, like, this is, like I said, this was all legal. I didn't miss any days. I did trade-off days. You were able to give away like 5 days, 5 shifts a month. So everything I did was completely within the guidelines of this airline company. All right. So I'm like, okay. I call HR. I'm like, hey, my check wasn't deposited. They're like, oh, okay, for some reason they requested a paper check. So you might want to call your job and see what's up. I'm like, got you. I'm already hip. I'm like, okay. So clearly they're about to fire me, because why else would you guys make me come in and get my check, you know? So I'm like, all right, this was my last shift. This was, you know, they had me come into the shift like it was normal. I show up on time, you know, 30 minutes before before I have to clock in. And I come in and I ask one of the leads, I'm like, hey, I didn't get my check. Is my check in the safe? They're like, oh no, you want to talk to the manager. I'm like, okay. So I go knock on the manager's door. I'm like, hey, they told me to come check with you about my check. He was like, oh, you're here early. I'm like, yeah, I'm always here early. Like, what do you mean? So he's like, okay, come in, shut the door. I'm like, I come in, shut the door. So like I said, I'm already hip. Like, clearly y'all are about to fire me. Like, that's fine, whatever. So I sit down, and he's just like, yeah, you know, after we've been reviewing your probation, it's just not working out. You know, this is exact words. Like, it's just not working out. And I'm like, okay. He's like, do you have any questions, any concerns? I'm like, no. Like, no. He was like, you know, obviously you don't have to stay for your shift. You can leave. I'm like, yeah, clearly. So I'm just like, okay, they give me my check. I'm like, so am I rehirable? He's like, oh, I'm not sure. But yeah, you're not gonna pass probation. We're gonna fail you on probation. I'm like, okay, whatever. Get my stuff, I leave. And it's fine. Because this lesson and what it was, it just wasn't the right fit. He was right. He was 100% right. It just wasn't the right fit. It wasn't the right fit for me. It wasn't the right environment for me. And it was best that it was time for me to part, because everything just happens as it's supposed to be and as it's supposed to lead you down the right path. Was I discouraged? Not really, because at this point I had been fired 2 times previously. So this was my 3rd time being fired, and I'm just like, it is what it is. I'm polite, I'm outgoing, I'm great with customers, I'm great with clients, I have great communication skills. That's fine, but I'm not about, I don't have empathy for mistakes, because I'm human and everybody is allowed to make mistakes. And I'm not gonna cry for making a mistake, because I'm human and that's normal. So they had just these expectations that were not for me. But I was able to go so many places, and it was the best experience for me. I literally, like, I did so much traveling during probation on standby. It was just like amazing, the places that I went. So I'm so thankful for the experience. That business isn't for me. there's other things, you know, that's led me here to telling you my story. So I just wanted to share that story with you guys because it was just like crazy. And maybe, you know, I should have more empathy, but I am who I am and God doesn't make mistakes, you know. I've had so many instances and so many experiences in my life that it's just crazy. So anyway, that's that story. Please feel free to leave your most, you know, shameful or embarrassing or anything that you, well, I wasn't even ashamed or embarrassed because it is what it is. It is what it is. I'm not everyone's cup of tea and you're not supposed to be. That wasn't the right fit for me, and God has blessed me abundantly since leaving that position, and I haven't missed a meal since, so thank God. But anyway, that's my story. Thank you guys so much for watching. Please leave any questions, comments below. Hope to see you guys soon.